And good morning, everybody, and welcome. Missing one today. Mr. Dotter can't be here today, but I'm sure we'll be able to get the job done. I'm sure he's watching us. Invocation, Mr. Gurley.
Yes, it's my pleasure this morning to introduce Miss Linda Burrs to have her invocation. Miss Burrs is a close friend of mine and our family, and very dear to our family. Miss Burrs is director of the House of Fordham, also pastor of Word of Church. So the Word Church is Miss Burrs. If you come up and lead the invocation, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Father God, we just thank you for the opportunity to pray. Father, the most important thing that we have to do with our day is to come before you. Father, first of all, I pray for safety for every one of our buildings in the city and for all the people that enter them. And God, I lift up each person. I lift up, Father, the decisions that will be made here, Lord, that will affect others. And I pray, Lord, for unity, that all that come together with the same accord and with one mind, God. I ask your blessings upon everything that is done and every decision that is made. And I ask you to lead and guide us during the day. And I give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Has everybody had the opportunity to read the minutes? Are there any corrections? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Adjustment of the agenda, Mr. Honeycutt.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On number one, under special presentation, we would like to remove that from this agenda. We did not have the information to the board in time, so we would like to do that in a couple of weeks at our next meeting. Also, under consent agenda, we would like to add number 9. It's an addendum to the CDBG DR agreement with the state. Again, this is one of the first of many changes to the agreement. We met yesterday with Dave Harris, and Dave will be here today to talk about an update of the buyout program and also the grant. But there's really no major changes. We'd just like to get your blessing to move forward with the addendum with the county attorney's approval.
Okay. Are there any other adjustments from the commissioners? Was there a motion on the floor to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. The next up, I think we've got, let's see here, we've got agenda done. Okay. Oh, Mr. Willis. He's our executive director of GWTA, by the way.
Good morning.
Good morning, Don.
I'm Don Willis. I am the Executive Director for the Goldsboro-Wayne Transportation Authority. I'm very excited to be here with you this morning to announce a special opportunity that we have for our veterans, a group of people that are very important in our community, also very important at Goldsboro-Wayne Transportation Authority. They make up about 25% of our workforce. And so the Goldsboro-Wayne Transportation Authority is honoring all veterans and active duty military with free bus rides starting on Monday, November the 5th, running through Veterans Day on Monday, November the 12th. Veterans and military personnel are asked to show their ID or a DD-214 photo ID to get the free ride. We're honored to offer this small token of appreciation to those who have served our country with such dedication. Our veterans are the reasons that we are able to be free to work, to live, and to play, and each one of us owes the veterans a debt of gratitude and respect and admiration for what they've done for our community. GWTA will also be participating in the Veterans Day Parade on Saturday, November 10th. We hope you'll come out for that and enjoy that. If you're a veteran and you're interested in learning how to use the GWTA, if you want to know about our system maps and schedules where you can go, we have a very interactive map, ridegwta.com. There's also an online trip planner which will help you to figure out how to use the service. We hope that veterans will take advantage of this opportunity, and we look forward to Veterans Day coming. Thank you for letting me come and announce this opportunity.
Best I recall, last year was not the first year, I don't believe, but it was well received by the veteran community. And spent a lot of time writing on it.
because I had a lot that came to me to thank you guys for doing that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
and I might know the answer to this, but just for public consumption,
Yes, sir.
what are there things in place for young people who may be trying to get around the county from job to job, or maybe from their home to the community college or wherever? Are there any breaks in there, and how tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The service we're running, we're actually providing some connector services. An example I can think of along the lines you were asking about is there's some folks that live down in Mount Olive. Young lady's going to high school there, and she's also trying to get advanced classes at the community college. So she rides our circulator in Mount Olive, makes a connector service early in the morning at our transfer center, and gets out to the community college for her college prep classes. So there's several people that are doing that. There's a young man who lives in Goldsboro who's also going down to work at the McDonald's in Mount Olive. We have a lot of services, and it's just a matter of folks understanding how to use the service.
Tell me again, what is the Enter Mount Olive transportation piece? Tell us that again.
We're running a new service, and there's a circulator in Mount Olive. And so every hour, the van makes a loop around the town. It's a deviated service. And so if you live close to the route, but you can't make it to the route for some reason, if you call an hour in advance, we'll come to your door, bring you back onto the route, and every hour it makes a circle. 4 times a day, we're coming from Mount Olive to Goldsboro, early in the morning, midday, and at the end of the day, basically. So you can make a connection to the city bus services from Mount Olive at our transfer center.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Thank you, Don. Okay, we'll move right on into public comments. Yeah, we're right on time on that. Anyone who wants to come up and speak, if you'll give us your name, your address, and your phone number, and you have 4 minutes, and welcome aboard.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Corey Williams, and I'm a Public Information Officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Assistance, Field Operations Center East. Phone number is 571-457-9778. Again, thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to present this morning. My name is Corey Williams, and I'm a Public Information Officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Assistance. And I've, been in here in town for Hurricane Florence around about 3 weeks ago. And a lot of people, when they think about SBA or disaster assistance in whole, most people think about FEMA. But whereas FEMA does disaster assistance grants, SBA actually offers disaster assistance in the form of low-interest loans to businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. So we partner with FEMA. And in fact, there was a disaster recovery center that was just opened yesterday here in Wayne County, which is located at the T.C. Coley Building, which is, the address is 516 South Leslie Street. And those hours of operation are Monday through Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's what's called a mobile disaster recovery center, so it's only going to be open on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and they'll be closed on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and it'll reopen next Monday. But that is kind of the one-stop shop for disaster assistance. That's going to have FEMA representatives there. It will also have SBA representatives and also mitigation professionals as well. So just to give you kind of an overview of the program, for business owners, businesses are actually able to borrow up to $2 million to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, machinery, inventory, equipment. But one of the most important things that, for a business owner, especially during times of recovery, is to have working capital to sustain themselves throughout the recovery period. One of the things I always kind of mention to business owners is just because a disaster happens, such as Hurricane Florence or Hurricane Michael last week, life doesn't stop. Employees need to be paid. Your monthly, lease obligations need to be paid. You have to do your marketing. So that's why we have working capital to provide to those business owners to sustain themselves throughout this recovery period. It's a one-year deferment on all of our loans, whether you're a business owner, homeowner, renter, or nonprofit. So especially for a business owner to be able to borrow, maybe even up to $25,000 to, provide working capital and to not have to make that first payment until November of 2019 is critical to keep that business sustained and operational throughout this recovery period. For homeowners are actually able to borrow up to $200,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate and up to $40,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property. The interest rates for the homeowners and renters is as low as 2%. Again, it's a one-year deferment. And for business owners, I forgot the interest rate is going to be as low as 3.675%. Again, that same one-year deferment. And for nonprofits, nonprofits are also eligible to borrow up to $2 million, which would include any faith-based organizations. And that interest rate is as low, well, actually, is across the board 2.5%. One of the last things I want to touch upon is that if any Wayne County resident had any damage from a prior storm, and maybe Hurricane Floyd or Hurricane Matthew, they're also eligible for a 9-month deferment on that loan, in addition to the 12-month deferment or the one-year deferment for a loan for Hurricane Florence. So again, I thank you for your time, for allowing me to present, and open up to any questions if there's any.
Thank you. Normally don't ask questions on that, but if you've got some literature on that, she could leave with us or send to us. I think that would be very helpful.
I will definitely.
Can I ask just one question?
I
have one too.
Okay.
We're going to break protocol.
Yeah. This is important.
And you gave some good information. I appreciate you coming and let us know. Help me, 500 Watt was the address? South
Yes,
Leslie.
sir. Yeah, Commissioner Gurley, it's 516 South Leslie Street. And that building is called the T.C. Coley Building.
I'm trying to get my mind worded. Well, I know about words.
W.A. Foster Center.
Okay. Gotcha.
Got it.
Yes.
I had, just a matter of information, I had a experience, I had to get an SBA loan during Hurricane Floyd. But the SBA loan that I got, banks participated in part of that. Is that still the case?
Actually, with the Disaster Assistance Loan Program, all of our loans are actually directly funded through the U.S. Treasury. So what happens with traditional SBA, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner Mayo, is that any loan, like let's say you go to most traditional SBA loans and you're trying to build a business or start a business, then those loans are actually funded by banks but actually guaranteed by the SBA. So the Disaster Assistance Program is where your federal taxpayer dollars are at work. So all the loans are actually directly funded by the U.S. Treasury, which allows us to have the deferment periods, because we understand that but for the storm, you really wouldn't have had to be put in a position to have to get a disaster assistance loan.
Could I follow up with that?
Yeah.
In my experience, and I'm just trying to compare if it's changed or not. In my experience, the bank, we have been in business 3 or 4, 5 years, had just enough, as they always saying, is to be dangerous, But bottom line is that the bank part of our loan, since we were a hardware store and all of our inventory, we didn't really have anything to put up as collateral. We had to sign personally for this.
Yes, sir.
Some people, some small businesses do not have anything to put up as collateral. Is there another avenue that these people can go to?
Yes, sir. And Commissioner Mayo, that's an outstanding question. I was trying to make sure I was staying within the parameters of the 4 minutes. But any business owner can actually borrow up to $25,000 for what's considered their physical loss, which is that real estate, machinery, inventory, and equipment. So let's say you have that hardware store and you had some minor damage, let's say to the roof, and you lost a little bit of inventory. Well, you can borrow up to $25,000 for that physical loss, but then let's say you also need economic, like some working capital to kind of keep your employees employees paid during the slow period, or to do more marketing. Because one of the things I always mention is that, especially with like Wayne County didn't have as much maybe physical damage, but let's say you got some equipment from Carteret County, or let's say you got equipment from Lenoir County, which was one of your major vendors, and now because that vendor actually shut down, now you may have to go out of state, let's say. Well, that's going to increase your costs, so that means you need more working capital to kind of keep that business operational. So that's, so business owners can actually borrow up to that $25,000 for their economic injury threshold. So actually a business owner can borrow to $50,000 without pledging any collateral whatsoever. It's a signature loan, as you alluded to. And the one thing that's one of the things I always recommend for a business owner, because that's the biggest thing is like, oh, well, I need the funds, but I don't want to, I don't want to have a mortgage, or I don't want to have a security agreement in place.
Right.
So that's an option as far as for that business owner who needs just that little bit of bump to, for that physical loss and that economic injury.
We obviously really have a lot more questions. Is there any possibility that you could come back? We could actually put you on the agenda so we could
Yes, sir.
do
I would
that.
love to come back.
And then if you would send us information prior to that so we can read through it and have an understanding, so we'll have questions that mean something, let's put it that
Good
way.
idea. Good idea. Good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you so
if you'll be
much.
in touch with Carol over there, and we'll get you in the next time, because this is important information that businesses and individuals need to know.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for allowing me to present.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else care to speak this morning? All right, then, we'll close it on out. Let's see. Oh, public hearing, and I believe Meet Allen, if you'll come on up. This is on our schedule of values by the tax administrator.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. This is the next step in our reappraisal process. Last time we presented our schedule of values to you. This is the public hearing portion of that, and then after today, first meeting in November, we'll actually adopt that, and we'll do our advertising, required advertising after that. All this is statutory, so if you'll open the public hearing, we'll get plans and comments.
It's open. Does anybody care to speak? Okay. Having no one to speak, I'll close it on out. How about that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Appointment committee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We met this morning. We have two appointment recommendations. First, we'd like to recommend the appointment of Ms. Julie Daniels to the Wayne County Development Alliance. I'd like to put this in form of a motion.
Have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you.
And our next is, we would like to recommend the reappointment of Mr. Jimmy Brown to the Wayne County Animal Control Advisory Committee. I'll put this in form of a motion.
Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, sir. Unfinished business. And I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Honeycutt.
We have Dave Harris here today, and as the board and citizens are aware, we've been working with Dave, and this is Matthew, with respect to our CDBG disaster recovery grant and also our HMGP grant. So we just wanted Dave to come, kind of give an update and tell where we're at. We have some movement forward. We've got some teams ready, and I'll turn it over to Dave.
Morning.
Morning, Dave.
The first program I want to focus on is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, the buyout program. That's because that's immediate, and really that's the one that the county has control over what happens, when it happens, and so forth. And we're on the same schedule we set up when we met at the Maxwell Center back at the end of August. It was, we'll receive proposals from all of the professional firms in September. We'll make the selection in October, which you're going to do later this morning. By the end of the month, we'll be under contract with those firms, and by the 1st of November, we will be issuing notices to proceed for those companies as well, firms, to go ahead and get started. Fortunately, we've had enough. We will have 5 different teams that are going to be assigned anywhere from 14 to 16 parcels each, and we're going to shotgun it. Everything's going out at the same time. In the past, the state had programs set up. They wanted you to kind of do it sequentially, get a few out, get a few back, and et cetera. It takes forever. We just want to start all of them simultaneously. we had identified there'd be some priorities, out of 84 parcels, there are differences in conditions for some of the families. And a priority is going to be anyone that's got some medical issues, health issues, that they need to be able to get the buyout and move into another location. Obviously, ones where they've got their houses is really not safe sanitary to live in. And we've also got the other side of that coin, of the ones facing financial hardship, which is a lot of people don't understand it. That's almost as bad or worse than the real disaster itself, is that you can be ruined financially. We've got people with 2 mortgages. We've got people paying rent because they couldn't get back into their house. I mean, not enough money. They're at the end of their rope, and we certainly want to try to get those out and get those people back to where they can purchase a replacement home, get out of the debt they've got on the other property, and kind of hopefully get their lives back in order. But just to keep in mind, even though you make those assignments and start out that way, we close when the ingredients are back. If we've got the appraiser and the survey and so forth, it's ready to go. It may happen to be one of the lower priorities. Well, we don't put them aside and wait. When those ingredients come back, got all their record of benefits and so forth, it's time to go to work. It's time to make an offer. It's time to close. It's time to buy. So everybody starts out in the same place, and then it's whatever the family circumstances are, that's how we then proceed with doing it. Some people are going to get an offer, and they're going to wait till the end of the school year to start doing something. Some of them are going to need to wait for other issues. We'll work with the families to do that. All that kind of gets factored into that process, but the overall effort is close as many as we can as fast as we can. And fortunately, we'll that beginning of that process will start in November. I had told everyone our objective was going to be, if there's any way we would get some offers out before the end of 2018, we're going to shoot for that. But there's a lot involved in terms of the FEMA process when it comes to the buyout, and we're just going to do all we can internally and hope that we can come close to that. We'd love to be able to have some offers on the street by the end of the year, but if not, come first quarter 2019, there's going to be a whole lot of people looking for houses. And like I say, I'm glad to say that's now ongoing. Any questions on the buyout program? Or
Yes. The 84 properties or families that have been highlighted, all 84 of those are going to be addressed. There's not going to be one left out. Is that correct? In other words, they all are going to be taken care of this go-around.
yes, everyone will get an offer, and then it'll be their decision as to where they go from there.
Okay, I just want to make sure that all of them, that there's not one or two that's going to be held up for particular reasons. Okay.
Not anything other than that may relate to their personal circumstances.
Okay. Now, do you know how many of these 84 families have also been affected by Michael? Do you have that information yet?
Not as Florence, a number of them are.
Yeah.
A number of them have been affected by Florence. And
Michael?
Michael, not to as much. Not as much as
We
Michael.
probably do have some. You
None
think?
of the 84 that are on our list were reoccupied their home.
Say that again?
None of these 84 reoccupied the same home.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, did you say have not reoccupied their home?
Not reoccupied the home that was damaged in the Hurricane Matthew.
Okay. So we don't have any having to do double applications and all this stuff, which can be another big deal. Okay.
If it wouldn't have mattered, because it's been funded under Matthew and now the program's underway,
Yeah.
we could have 6 disasters from the time of Matthew. It's not going to affect them whatsoever. It's the pre-disaster market value from Matthew.
Yeah.
That's where we go.
I'm glad to hear that, because my insurance carrier at the beach doesn't say that.
And they wouldn't. And there are issues on the HUD side, too, when it comes to that.
Yeah.
On the buyout side, because our starting point is October 7, 2016,
Right.
anything that's happened after that in terms of the house or whatever happened, et cetera, it just doesn't come into play. I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
You know, so, and that's good news in terms of these subsequent disasters are slowing things down in a number of other respects, but not in terms of a buyout where our trigger date is 2016.
Thank you.
I met a person yesterday that, if I have his conversation correctly, he was affected the third time since the Florida, whatever, Matthew, Florence, saying the biggest previous one, I think it was Florida. Now, if I understand what you just said, and if I understand him, he corrected some things after Matthew, but Florence came along and reflooded him. And so because whatever may have happened during Matthew prevents or eliminates him from being reconsidered, and so he won't be in that 84. The 84 is just for Matthew. Is that correct? So you got to take care of that. Although the person may have been re-damaged,
There will be another HMGP program for Florence.
all right. And I want to back up to your first word that you used, because I want to get some understanding of a word that is in our language here, but I hear it, mitigation. What does that mean, Dave, where you all are concerned? The word mitigation.
Mitigation is to reduce the risk of a subsequent disaster impacting, and I'll use households because that's who we work with. In the case of the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, the one effort and activity you can undertake that's 100% foolproof is a buyout. The people are going to be bought out, the land's going to return to its natural state, the person's going to relocate outside a 100-year floodplain. Then there is not any chance that they will risk flooding, damage, or anything again. You know, that's a mitigation activity. It is what activities we have that can lower the risk, reduce the risk. In the case of a buyout, eliminate the risk. In the case of elevation, it's another mitigation activity, and you're raising the house in order to reduce the risk of a subsequent flood impacting that structure, impacting the occupants. It's not foolproof. It's possible there can be another mother of all floods following the last flood of all floods, and it could be impacted. The issue with the mitigation on the elevation is, and I use this analogy, the only thing that it changes from where they were 2 feet off the ground to where they're 8 feet off the ground is the carpet doesn't get wet. Everything else, though, is an issue. Emergency management is an issue, recovery is an issue, lack of power is an issue, lawn mowers, cars, tractors, and everything that are there, that's all gets flooded again, that's an issue. Gas tanks are going to lift and float. You still have every single one of those things that go on from a disaster happening around this structure and are impacting in most cases, people still going to need to move. Not going to have any power, not going to have any, in some cases, utilities. It kept the contents of the house high enough up that the flooding doesn't affect it. But there's still a lot of expense, a lot of activity, a lot of hardship that can accompany any major flood or any major disaster. But we have mitigated the structure. We've reduced the chance of the building itself, the house itself. Everything else, though, there's going to be issues. You can't mitigate all of that. That's human existence.
The word, and I'm sure that our organization uses it, but the word mitigation, when I hear it from insurance companies, I've not dealt with FEMA, I've dealt just with insurance companies through my different coverages. But I'm not sure that, and the reason I wanted your explanation of mitigation, I'm not sure that the insurance companies, when they use the word mitigation, to me, they are pointing towards reducing not the chance that something's going to happen to me, but the opportunity for them to reimburse me for what is currently in place. Because to me, the word mitigation, when they use it, and help me out if you know when they use the word mitigation, and this might be just an outright assault, and I don't mind that, towards the insurance company, when they use that word, to me, it's an attempt to reduce what they will settle with the homeowner for. Can you help me out with that?
I'd
In
say
your
that's
world of
that's probably a
expertise?
pretty good assessment.
I think he's right.
It's to, in their case, is to mitigate or reduce the chance of another payment made for a loss.
And in my experience, it's an attempt to reduce the chance that they'll pay for the current one. And I say that.
That can happen too.
I say that without any reservation in saying it, and I want the public to start to pay close attention to what they're dealing with. And I'll leave it at that right for the moment, but you've publicly given me some help about this word mitigation. There's a much more harsh term that I can think of that will fit it, but I'll just leave it at that for the moment. Thank you, Dave.
Anybody else?
He's got it, Ed. He's got it.
Mr. Chairman, Matt?
Sure.
I'll say something. Dave mentioned that the county had complete control over this. The public needs to know the county hadn't had it very long. That we've been waiting a long time, more than 2 years now, to get the control. And the public needs to know that we've just been able to get that control.
Good point.
It hadn't been 2 years that we've had control, or the buyouts would have already been completed.
True. True. Okay, on the CDBG-DR, Disaster Recovery or HUD program, for which we're taking the applications at the center, there, the Farm Service Agency building. I think the last time I was here, we had received a little over 200 applications. We're now at the 316. You would have thought that things kind of would have, the longer you are from a disaster, you've got the people in the pipeline that it kind of tapers off. Well, Florence was a reawakening for a lot of the people that had Matthew damage. And so they're now coming into the center. We're not able to take applications for people who had Florence damage only. That program, none of that has started. There's been some allocations made by both Congress and by the General Assembly, but it still hadn't arrived yet. But when the people now come in, and of course the signs are housing assistance, where are you going to go? You can go to the intake center. We are counseling everyone that comes in and making sure they understand that distinction. We'll take a name and address, obviously, because we're going to want the people to know when there's a Florence program available. But we're fortunate in that the way that even the HUD program is set up, as long as you were damaged by Matthew and there's this allocation here, doesn't matter how many subsequent disasters could hit you, you're in the system. You're going to receive assistance. And what happens is the ones that also were damaged by Florence, the houses could get repaired. In some cases, it may be enough to actually trigger it having to be replaced. Because with HUD money, if you spend $1 of HUD money on a structure, a dwelling unit, it has to be, when you leave it, it's brought up to a standard. It's called the HUD Housing Quality Standards. It just means that now that we're going to go fix a Matthew house, it had Florence damage. They may not have had insurance or didn't cover, et cetera. Well, guess what? The only way we're going to be able to get from where they are now to a safe, decent, sanitary house meeting all the standards is you fix all the repairs that are now existing. They'll wind up getting absorbed by the Matthew program and it'll get fixed. In some cases, again, it will have created enough damage that it trips it into a reconstruction. And the state had gone out and starting in June doing damage assessments on hundreds and hundreds of houses, 100% of which they had to go back and redo after Florence because they had to identify those additional. It would put some houses in a different status from a repair to possibly a replacement. So those Florence victims are going to be getting assistance only because they started out as Matthew. They're in the system. We just have to identify, okay, now what's it going to take to get them to a house that's completed? And that process is underway. And for some households, and I won't get into all the other numbers about it, we've got all regional centers now. There's 9 across the state for Matthew. We're taking applications from everybody in the surrounding counties and in other counties. If they want to come here, we do it, which is why we're well at 316. But the state, having completed damage assessments, gone out and having to do it again, has made awards. We've got 12 housing awards been made in Wayne County in the last week or so. We've got 1 reimbursement only, 2 of them are repair only, 6 qualify for both reimbursement and repair. In other words, they made repairs after the Matthew, but didn't have enough money for all of it, so they can get reimbursed the money they didn't receive from FEMA. And 3 households have been approved for reconstruction, completely demolishing the house on site, putting another house on the same site with the same floor plan, well, the same footprint, same size. And that work's going to be underway well before the end of the month. I mean, for reimbursements only, those folks will be receiving a check. The other ones, the contractor's already in line by the state to start repair work. And then for the ones whose house is going to be replaced, they'll be lining up with where they'll stay. During the interim period, when that happens, contractors come in and they'll start with another house. The houses may be reconstruction. Some of those will be modulars, state building code, obviously, because they'll go in any zoning district just like a stick-built home. Or they may stick build them. Again, the state's got a pool of contractors they'll be working with to do that. And in some cases, it depends on the type of house, and if it's real simple and so forth, they're modulars that are identical to it. In other cases, it may be a little bit different situation, and they may just stick build it. The state's handling that part of it. It's their call. For the family who's getting a replacement house, I really don't think it's going to be a big issue about what the pitch on the roof is and where the entry door and the rear door is located. It's going to replace what they've got now, which is not fit to live in. So, and those are the ones that the houses were damaged well past 50% of the value, 50, 60, 80%. Federal government's not going to spend money on those and basically kind of throw it away. They're going to replace the house. We're hoping now that these few are out, and we've got them in the pipeline. I mean, we've got, out of those 316, 162 houses are approved. They've made it through, got the application finished, they're sitting there. And now the state's starting. These are the first 12 out of those 162. And now we're hoping that these on a regular basis will be coming through. The state's going to start issuing reports to the county about the effect of that. In other words, how many houses have been awarded, how much has been obligated, the status, and that sort of thing, and we'll be able to furnish that to the board. So you'll be able to see, hey, now we finally got some activity underway on the HUD side of the recovery program, and you'll be able to see the numbers.
Mr. Mayo.
I have one.
He was first.
You said 316 applications,
Yes.
and we got how many so far that's been allocated?
Well, 316 we've received. We've 162 of those have been approved and made it all the way through the pipeline in terms of benefits, eligibility, et cetera. Out of those, 12 households have been awarded assistance.
Okay, is this 300? Okay, so the 84 other families is under a different.
Totally distinct.
That's totally different.
The 84 and the buyout are on another planet.
Okay, so how many?
These are totally separate.
Let me back up for a second. How many of the 84 have been approved so far?
In the buyout? Well, they've already approved
I'm
money.
talking about have they got the money? In other words, is the process already started?
No. For the buyout, it's a real estate transaction, so that's why we're hiring the attorneys, the surveyors, and appraisers.
I understand.
Got to have the attorneys first, got to do the survey, got to have it appraised, and then make the offer.
Okay.
That's just starting.
Oh, okay, that was my question.
That groundwork's just being laid today.
Okay, so nothing has transpired because you're still in the process of getting all the appraisals and all this stuff. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Marty.
In in the 84 that you have already descended, were any of those folk, were the categories where they got insurance money, but it wasn't enough to complete the project and they qualified? Were there any in that category? And I think the question I'm trying to get to is, if the insurance company had a formula that did not match what the damages were, are there folk in that 84 who got assistance through FEMA that may have also got some part of an insurance settlement?
Yes. In fact, for any of those in 84, they're going to have the same characteristics of anybody who's been impacted by Matthew. They will apply to FEMA, they applied for flood insurance, they applied for homeowners insurance, and they could receive benefits from any of those sources, for which any of those benefits that for repair, if they didn't make those, in some cases they made the repairs and they spent more money than that because the repair funds, either the insurance company or FEMA didn't cover it. Majority of the time though, they received the benefits from one or two different sources. They made repairs, but they can't document that if you got $15,000 worth of flood insurance check for repairing your house, they may not have the receipts, the evidence, the documentation to show, yes, I spent $15,000 in making the repairs, so now this is a zero. Got 15, spent 15, then we're even. Most of them are going to be where they don't have the receipts, they didn't keep the receipts, they may have lost the receipts, but what it gets down to is, just real quick example, and we talked about this at the meeting, if somebody's got $15,000 insurance payment for repairs on that structure, they've got $10,000 worth of receipts. Well, then they benefited $5,000 that either went in their pocket or in most cases bought food, paid rent. I call that the survival money. Well, survival money isn't spent on repairs. So if their house is appraised at $100,000, we'll subtract that $5,000 from it because they've got that $5,000 benefit, whether it's in their bank account or they benefited from it, and the federal government's not going to pay twice for the same house, the same asset. And so, and I'll be honest with you, for the folks, they understand it. Said, yeah. For some of them, they have it in their checking account. They never spent a dime. House was beyond. They said, hey, I'm not going to put any money on this house. I throw money away.
One short.
Not a problem. They're still going to get the same amount of money.
One short question. In the eastern part of North Carolina, I think it may be in the west too, but in the eastern part of North Carolina, in addition to the deductible on your insurance policy, they also have a 3% wind damage stuck in there. That 3% is based upon the total value of your house. And if you don't meet a certain damage criteria that amounts to 3% of the total value, then the insurance company can avoid paying anything. So in that case, if a homeowner did not receive anything because of that formula the insurance company has, is that open? Is the FEMA opportunity open to that? Or is that too convoluted a question to?
No, it's fine, in fact, and it doesn't create any issues on the buyout. It's simply going to be, did you receive any benefits for repairs? In that case, regardless of what may have the decision either by FEMA, the decision by the insurance company to not have paid anything simply means the person didn't get anything, so they'll get full pre-disaster market value on the house. It's not going to kick them out. It's not going to create any detriment. There's no negative to it. It's simply a matter, the program is able to take all of these variations that have occurred and look at it. There's a system in place, it's been in place since the 70s, which is why when I'm saying finally the county has a program that it can take and run, it's under its control. That's all in place. We can take every one of these situations, we can manage it, and we can take them to the buyout.
Is the opportunity still available for Matthew damage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, there's been no announcement of application process stopping for Matthew, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think it ever will. Florence will come in and overlap, and it's all just going to continue being housing repair needs for years.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
mention one thing.
Okay.
David, thank you for your hard work and diligence you provide for Wayne County and its applicants, and we know that you're looking forward to Florence, and I know that you've been with us in Eastern North Carolina through Irene and Isabel and Floyd and all the hurricanes, and I do want this board to understand, and people of Wayne County understand that David is an icon in this industry. And the feedback I get from Raleigh is that we're very fortunate to have David with us working through these means, and that David is light years ahead of other people in the same industry, and we appreciate you being with us and carrying us through and help us now, since we're in control, as Mr. Parker said, let's expedite this for the applicants and get some action happening. Thank you, David.
Thank you, I appreciate
David,
that,
I want
Judge.
to
Thank you.
also, and I want to add one more caveat. I hope the public will watch this program, and I hope that you provide them, you give them your telephone number, because they sometimes call us with questions that is just beyond our reach, because you're dealing with this on a daily basis. So I'm saying this sort of publicly. We know people who will give us calls, and I want to refer them to you publicly so they'll go ahead and call you and get the deep answer. Thank you.
I can give you my number if you want to have one. Anyone wants to call me about that disaster recovery, they can call me at the office, 919-751-0909.
Thank you.
Sound like James Bond to me.
Almost.
David, thank you, because I have worried you to death. And I have, because of my concern for these, especially 84 families. And you have taken the time every single time that I've called you to go way above and beyond explaining to me, because this is all new. As I mentioned to you, when I need answers from disaster relief or whatever, I go to you. If you need machining done, you come to me. So bottom line is, I appreciate all your patience with me because of my information that I did not know. It's been a very enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And believe it or not, we keep learning. I don't know how many years I wound up being in this, but every one we still keep learning.
Thank you, David. All right, let's move on to consent agenda. We discussed all this in the earlier session. Or any more comments or questions on it? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Got a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. New business. Mary, I think you're up.
Good morning. The item I have today is the request for a public hearing for a solar energy facility. This facility is proposed on Big Daddy's Road, actually right outside of Pikeville, on the north side of Big Daddy's Road. If you're familiar with that area, it is a 5 megawatt facility on a 39-acre piece of property, or it's about 39 acres in size. This is in the RA20 zoning district, since it is right outside of Pikeville within the school district area, that zoning around Charles B. Aycock High School. And so because of that, it does require a special use permit, which has been submitted. And as a result of that, this board would need to sit as the Board of Adjustment and hold a public hearing to approve that special use permit. The site plan has gone to the Planning Board for review and approval. That happened earlier this month. And all the information has been submitted as required by the ordinance, such as the property impact study. We have our property owner consent form, decommissioning plan, the interconnection application, and the applicant has actually also had a community meeting and has provided some information on that community meeting as well for the public hearing. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Again, we're just asking that you schedule a public hearing for November 20th so that the Board of Adjustment can review this request.
Questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Isn't there a solar farm close to this site already, or is it?
There's one, there is one in Pikeville.
On 117?
On 117, right near the intersection of Mount Carmel Church Road.
Yes.
There is one there. It's just inside Pikeville's planning jurisdiction, so that one actually went through the town of Pikeville versus the commissioners, or versus the Board of Adjustment.
I see. Well, this one is pretty close to that one, isn't it?
It is
I'm thinking-
probably, distance-wise, probably a couple of miles
Okay.
at least, or
That's
within a
crow
couple of
flies.
miles.
At
It's
first, I
not-
was thinking it might be on the same side, but it's not. It's a separate. it's a
Separate, that's right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
See over there on the left where Smith used to have all those houses.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, there.
That's not in Pikeville's?
No, and actually, when you look at their map,
through.
look at the Pikeville map, the jurisdiction for Pikeville kind of goes around, and when you get to that northeast corner, it kind of juts back in. And so if Pikeville had a full ETJ, I guess you could say it would be in Pikeville's ETJ, but because of the high school, the county zoning circles that high school, and there's kind of a cutout there in that jurisdiction. So
Seems like that it was part of it, and then a few years ago, when I was first elected, they changed that.
Right.
Chip would probably remember.
The county's had its own for quite a while, and when they established the ETJ for Pikeville, if the county already had zoning in place, the county zoned to override that ETJ.
Okay. I knew there was something. All right, then, is there a motion to approve having a public hearing on November 20, 2018 at 9:30?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion on the floor, is any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you, Barry.
thank you.
County manager comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. One thing we wanted to do today is, as you saw in our budget amendments, we did a $283,000 budget amendment for the mosquito spraying program. And I wanted Mel to kind of come and give you a hands-on update of where we're at on that, and also any issues that are outstanding from Florence or anything that we have from Michael. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mel.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. And I won't be very long. And the manager did ask me to come in and talk a little bit about the mosquito abatement and where we're at on that. But I just want to hit a few highlights on Hurricane Florence for you guys. Hurricane Florence made landfall in Wrightsville Beach on the morning of September 14th, and it was a very weak Category 1 hurricane. But there is a high-pressure ridge that stalled it out, so as you know, you went to bed, got up the next morning, it still looked like it was in the same place it was in when you laid down. It was running about 2 to 3 miles an hour, and it was dumping water the whole time. The preliminary rainfall totals from National Weather Service is about 25.18 inches average within the county, and we do know that there's some higher localized areas that get a lot more than that, but their average is about 25.18 inches for Wayne County. The Neuse River crested at 27.6 feet. That's the third highest historical crest that we've had, right behind Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Floyd. We did have 3 confirmed tornadoes within Wayne County right after the storm. We had one in Goldsboro, one in the Pikeville area, one in the Belfast area. We did have 6 shelters opened, and we had 999 registered evacuees within our shelters. The SMAT, or State Medical Assistance Team, also opened up a medical support shelter for the eastern region of the state to support those medically fragile evacuees that we had coming in from the Tier 1 counties. We had right at 20,000 residents that were without power with Duke, and about 172 from Tri-County that were without power. As the gentleman from the SBA stated, we do have a DRC, or Disaster Recovery Center, that opened up yesterday. It is at the T.C. Coley building, which is the O.W.A. Foster building at 516 South Leslie Street. That is about 2 blocks north off of Elm Street. You'll see it on the right. They assisted 10 applicants yesterday alone. So as they opened yesterday, they did receive about 10 applications yesterday and walked them through that process. So that's just a little bit of update on what we saw with Hurricane Florence. Now, we'll talk about the mosquito abatement and where we're at on that. The health director and myself met a few times talking about the mosquito issues that we had. The state approved about $4 million for the disaster declared counties for mosquito abatement. And what that accounted for Wayne County is about $284,000 thereabout is what we were allotted as Wayne County to spend towards mosquito abatement. Following uniform guidance that we have from finance, David and myself started working on getting the RFP ready to go out. We did some research on what should be included in that, and the finance department did an outstanding job. They were able to turn around an RFP in a matter of a day. We were able to get an RFP out, and that RFP went out on October 4th. And with the guidance, we will open that bid package up tomorrow, the 17th. That's when the bid package will open up, and we'll be able to select a vendor. We did meet with our municipalities, towns, and villages yesterday and kind of give them an update on what we're looking at. We will be looking at a timeline on when we'll start spraying, and it'll depend a lot on the vendor we go with, the amount of equipment that that vendor has. We were looking at about 1,120 linear miles is what we're looking at spraying. And that equates to what they're telling us is a population density of 100 persons per square mile is what we're looking at. With that in mind, it's about 1,120 linear miles. And with the money that we're looking at, we're hoping to get 4 to 6 sprays with this. So probably 4 in the dusk and 4 at dawn. But we're hoping after tomorrow we'll sit down with the vendor and we'll be able to give you a better timeline on when that abatement will start.
Just an observation. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That must be some pretty expensive stuff you're spraying. I mean,
yes, sir. It's
per gallon, it must be pretty expensive.
I know it when we looked at the different quotes that we were seeing, anywhere from 50 to 85 miles, $85 per mile.
Per mile.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And also, you want to mention the sticks that we're going to put in?
Yes, we also, thank you. We also did, we bought what they call dunks. We bought about $9,000 worth of dunks, and that is larvicide that a homeowner can put in a ditch with standing water. You've probably seen them at Lowe's, just them little discs that you put in. We bought about $9,000. It's about 10,000 dunks. We separated them out. We actually give out 1 per household, and you can go to the environmental health here at the Jeffries building. A family can go pick up 1 for free, or you can go to Town Hall in Mount Olive for the southern side of the county and pick 1 up, and they are available. I think, I know we've given out a couple hundred so far out of the Jeffries building.
There's no environmental impact on those things.
No, sir. They are supposed to be environmentally and animal friendly. Yes, sir.
Does the municipalities have their own spraying opportunities, and do they get dollars individually?
No, sir. None of our municipalities nor ourselves have a mosquito abatement program. I checked with all the municipalities. This $284,000 encompasses all jurisdictions within Wayne County. So this will cover any and all municipalities, villages, towns, and unincorporated areas within the county.
Anything else?
That's all we have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think we've all been dealing with the same thing. I haven't had any meetings except the special meeting we had last Monday. Was it last Monday?
It was last Monday.
Yeah, it was last Monday. And I just know that there's a lot of people in the county, staff, employees that stepped up during our hurricanes, and including Michael. So, but I, as a commissioner, I've sort of been out of place for 3.5 weeks. I'm like a lot of other people. I had have major damage at my beach property. I have to take care of that while I have a contractor, but it's still, you know how that goes. And dealing with the insurance company, Commissioner Cromartie and I have been talking about this over the phone, about dealing with insurance companies. But bottom line is that, you know, all that can be replaced, and I just ask for your patience. I'm trying to handle everything I can, including being a county commissioner, and sometimes it gets pretty tough. So thank you most of all for your prayers and your support to any of us that happen to have property damage, no matter where it's located. Yeah, it's not my primary residence and all that, but the key is that it still needs to be refurbished and put back the way it should. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Martin.
Well, I wasn't quite sure what Mr. Mayo meant by when he said things can be replaced. He may have been talking about the materialistic things.
Yeah.
I thought for a moment he was talking about the insurance companies. I was wondering if there was an opportunity. And I know, and when I say this, a lot of folk will probably disagree with this. But there are some things that they say the government cannot do. But for fairness, I think maybe our state legislature might look at being more directly involved with insurance companies and maybe a little bit more control over the insurance commissioner's office, because someone is giving the insurance companies an opportunity to do an injustice to the public. When you have an example, a $500 deductible, and then in the small print about halfway down they have a 3% added to that without an explanation, then you wind up finding that if I gave you a scenario, by the time they finish with you, you don't get any money, you would almost owe them a little bit more. That's true. I'll leave it there for the moment. I asked my family yesterday, should I give out my email address to anyone who's been abused by the insurance companies, and we might need to take some flags to Raleigh to prove to our leaders that they need to do something that's not being done at the moment. I'll leave that speech right there. I want to say something about the shelters, Mel. I happened to visit the two in Mount Olive. First let me address the workers. I found them happy that they were helping people. Okay, that's when I say happy that they were helping people. Sure, they could have been home doing something else, but I thought I found them just pleasantly happy that they were able to do something. Second part of that is I went past one site, Carver, and I think they had already disseminated folk out through the hallways because of a better way to service them. In Mount Olive Middle, they were in the gym. So I just walked up and poked my head in there, very briefly poked my head in there, and they were scattered around through the gym. And the reason that I wouldn't go in any further, it was dimly lit for privacy. I quickly realized that folk were trying their best, the workers were trying their best to respect the integrity of the folk at the shelters. And it dawned on me that the last thing that would be appropriate for me to do would be walking around in there looking like I was nosy, and they're not home in their den in their living room, they were in a shelter. And I think that the folk that managed the shelters did the best they could, respected the privacy and the integrity of each family. Thank you for that, because too many eyes walking around looking would not have been appropriate. You all did what you're supposed to do, and thank you very much. I have another couple of items on the agenda here. I was in Dudley yesterday looking at some of the areas that have been flooded. There's always an opportunity for this board to vote and spend some money on something. and I've got to advocate for the Dudley. That's District 2. In Dudley and Rollingwood, there are so many different elevations. There's a hill here, a hill there, a dip here, a dip there. And one gentleman showed me what was called, I thought it would look like a little valley, but the technical term for that, I think, is they call it a bowl. For about several blocks, there was a bowl there. And you could see the ditches where the water had settled and then finally dried up. But there are some issues that calls for heavy intervention. And this, I hope, is not a radical statement, but those folk out there paying taxes, and our tax collector just left, but those folk out there paying taxes. And I began to, when I left that area looking at it, I could not help but weigh what I thought was the amount of taxes that they paid versus the services that they received. That might not be a popular way to say this sitting on this board that I'm sitting on, but I want to say it again. Taxes paid versus services received. And the problem with the flooding out there cannot be managed by one family or even just the area that may be impacted. I spent about an hour and a half with a gentleman, and he rode me all through that area, and he was pointing out the different places that would flood. Seemed like a maze of streams out there. They may be connected, may not be, but there's so many different elevations that it calls for a look. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Mr. Bear.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First, Mr. Cromartie is very passionate about this insurance thing. I just want to tell him that I had a bedroom that got wet during Hurricane Matthews, and when Florence came, I filed my Florence deal, and my insurance company said, well, how did you get the same bedroom wet 2 years apart? Good question. I said, you need to ask somebody with a higher skill level than me. I said, we had two different hurricanes, one Matthew and one Florence. So they took care of the rest of my house, but they left that bedroom unattended. I got to, might have to hire me a good attorney to take a look at it, Mr. Cromartie. I did not meet with any of the committees, but I did meet with Probation and Parole, as Mr. Honeycutt asked me to do, about when Probation and Parole complete their probation or parole, how did they get back on, to get their rights back, you know. But they promised me that they will write us out a step-by-step process that you go through and present it to us at a later date, not today, but at a later date, that we will have it where when people talk about whether or not they're eligible to be on committees or whatever, we will have something to go by. So I will get that information for the commissioners. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Aycock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to remind the commissioners we have a survey here from Wayne Community College that they would like for us to fill out and get back in. Appreciate y'all's help on that. Also, there's been a lot going on since our last meeting, and storms and weather. But I did attend the UNC Healthcare Breast Cancer Awareness event at the Maxwell Center. It was on the same night as the storm was coming through. I think they had collected tickets, or it didn't really sell, just had to register 500 people, and the Maxwell Center was full. Great turnout.
great program. Really appreciate UNC Healthcare for putting that on, because it's well worth the effort that they go through for breast cancer awareness and hopefully for early detection and prevention as far as you can go for prevention. Also, Commissioner Cromartie mentioned, the issue at Dudley. I just want for everyone to keep in mind, we have the same problem all over the county. We can't, that's part of his district, but we all got to keep in mind we're county commissioners. I mean, we represent all of the county. And we have the same issues all over the county. So, if we start addressing one, we're going to start, looking at all of them. And I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be addressed, but just keep in mind that it's a countywide issue. Also, let's keep our neighbors to the west in our prayers. We dodged a bullet on this on Hurricane Michael, but the Piedmont area of North Carolina did not. I was talking to my son in Greensboro. They didn't get current back until Sunday. They went 4 days in Greensboro without current. Not all the city, but a big part of it. He said that, Dad, in some areas it was like a war zone. He said these old oak trees that's been here for how many 100 years, he said a lot of them's down. He said, and the pine trees, it just broke them off. And I didn't realize till I talked to him exactly how much damage they did have in the Piedmont area, but it was quite a bit worse than it was here. So we feel for them, but we're glad that we dodged a bullet. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gurley.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, my comments will be a little longer than my normal 2 or 3 sentences. If y'all bear with me. Unfortunately, I was unable to be at our last meeting due to the passing of my mother-in-law unexpectedly, and it was a shock to us all. And a couple days later, passing of my son-in-law John's father, Ricky Bell. Everybody probably remembers Ricky as DOT maintenance engineer for so many years, and the civil servant he was and did such a great job for this county and all of us. And so we were a little bit of a whirlwind. So when I kind of got back down, grounded a little bit, Sunday I looked through the agenda package and was read the minutes with interest. And so I emailed Joel and Carol and asked for a little help trying to find the video of the commissioners meeting. And Joel graciously responded back to me and directed me to the website where I could look at it. And the meeting went well, and I listened with great interest to each one's comments. And I thought the meeting was very good and informative, and a lot of interest was expressed in a lot of areas. And there's a couple items I'd like to highlight, and one of them is convenience centers. And Craig, the chairman, I'll get with you on that. I got a little bit of input, but for the sake of time today, and rather than rehashing a lot of stuff, I'm just going to pass off, and we'll maybe Friday get together. And I'll give you a little input that I hope will help, and we'll go from there. But the second one I'd like to mention is the core-sense sales tax that's on the ballot. Again, I listened with interest to everyone's comments about the core-sense sales tax, and I'd like to applaud Commissioner Daugherty and Commissioner Cromartie for their efforts to get both parties to support and write letters of support for the passing and work towards one united goal of education. And the proceeds of this sales tax will be beneficial to our education in Wayne County, and encourage voters to pass this to keep Wayne County competitive and out front for surrounding counties. And everybody needs to recognize that I think Wayne County probably has the lowest tax rate of this general area here, and that makes it a very competitive market for us. And with the sales tax passing, the amount of money it'll generate will keep our property tax down, and that will still keep us on a competitive edge for marketability for our county as well. Sales tax is a fair tax. It kind of spreads out amongst everybody and keeps the burden of all the expenses, and off just certain individuals. And this money can be spent towards brick and mortar and infrastructure, of our school systems and stuff, and teacher salaries, and the list continues and goes on and on. But, education is as important to this county in competitive marketability as the tax rate is too. So we need to work hand in hand. We really need to get out and market this sales tax on the ballot for November 6th and starting Wednesday for early voting. And I just humbly ask everybody, please get out and vote for it, and ask your neighbors to get out and vote for it as well. And that maybe we can move Wayne County forward and be at the top of the pinnacle of education and be able to educate our children, our grandchildren, future generations, and make Wayne County the marketable place down east. There was discussion about floods, and there was a lot of things mentioned about 500-year floods, how often they have occurred, and discussion on dredging the little rivers and use rivers and already clean outs and stuff. And all of those things of flooding is a multifaceted, and I think Commissioner Aycock might have mentioned about all the rooftops that's been built since the 1990s from Raleigh east, and those rooftops and cement driveways and subdivision roads displaces water and causes more flood, and all that's true. And it just compiles and compiles and compiles that, what is the answer? But one thing I don't think that was mentioned, and like I say, I've been in a whirlwind for seemed like a month now, but I talked to Chip last week, and I'd asked Chip maybe today that if we have time, early meeting getting out, that he and Barry and I could sit down and talk, because Commissioner Aycock and I both served on the Highway 70 Corridor Commission. The commission jump-started a study on the river ring flooding that we were experiencing down east. And that then compiled into a study commission out of the NCDOT, and I think the preliminary report has come back on that, and on the second one will be forthcoming and stuff. But I just wanted to pass along some information to Barry and Chip of what I've seen over the years. And I think the last study the Corps of Engineers done was in 1965. And it talked about Falls Lake and stuff. And of course, Falls Lake was put in place. And if you look at the North Carolina Climatology Archives site, you can see where record flooding has occurred, and you can see where the Falls of the Lake has helped flooding down east with what the locals, old timers, used to call it a fresh. It's like every spring a fresh would come up, and just any day the lowlands and flood it out. But there has been some control measures, and if I recall correctly, and this is from years and years and years ago, there was even discussions back during that to have another reservoir built in Wilson Mills areas. But part of my conversation with Barry and Chip today is going to be, I met with a local agribusiness owner in the New Orleans area, Danny Pierce. I've known Danny all my life, and Danny's a very good businessman, and but he can't keep taking floods and floods and floods. Danny's been at his current location in his agribusiness, I'm going to guess, 40-plus years or more. But the family farms there have been in his family over 100 years. And it's become more and more and more and more. And so finally, Danny has relocated his agribusiness to higher grounds to another farm he's had to go out and buy. So all these burdens on the local farmers is just mind-boggling what they're going through. And Danny's a good person that Chip and Barry can sit down with and talk about. He can talk intellectually about the agribusiness, and he can talk intellectually about how that river floods and how it affects him. So if it affects him the way it has affected him in the western part of Wayne County, it traverses all the way through the Stevens Mill to the Marmac, to the Arrington Bridge, to the Slick Rock, to the Seven Springs area. So once we get that foundation started, I think it'll be a big help. So that's going to be part of Barry and Chip and I's conversation today. And one last unofficial announcement. If I heard right, y'all may know more about this than I do. If you do, I apologize. But I think the state last night passed a $794 million package for Hurricane Florence to expedite some relief, and I think they'll go back in 6 weeks to look at it again for relief for agriculture, infrastructure, roads, et cetera. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Following up on what Commissioner Radcock said with this, I was actually part of a group of about 100 people who were invited to the college, and they broke us up in focus groups to answer these questions. So I really didn't want to go, but once I got there, I actually had a pretty good time, to be honest with you, and met some really good people. And this is important to the college, so if you guys will follow up on that. Had a meeting at the hospital last week. Just a quick update on that. You know, I've talked about Epic, that big software program that's been implemented there, working very well. I mean, there's always some bumps in the road, but overall, everybody's pleased, the medical staff as well. So we got to thank them for moving on to that. Talking about farmers, went to the Ag Luncheon. Was it last week? Was it 2 weeks ago? Kudos to Kate Daniels, because Commissioner Troxler couldn't be there, so she brought in the Wayne County expert, Kevin Johnson. And Kevin did an outstanding job of speaking out there. And you're right, our farming community has never been through any of this. Well, they've never seen anything like this in their lifetime. And Kevin, you know, he was very honest. We're going to lose some farmers this year. I mean, it's just a fact. So, and talking about property tax versus sales tax, you know, we had talked about a property tax, but that would really hurt it hurt the landowners, and particularly our farmer community. And that's why we felt the sales tax was a better way to go, because that touches everybody. And it's really 25 cents on $100. So it's not that much. Even people who drive through Wayne County would help pay for that. It's important that it pass, because I, as a commissioner, there's no way I can go in June if this doesn't pass and raise property tax. That's just me, because our farmer community has been just hammered. I just can't do it. But anyway, other than that, Wednesday, get out. I don't care who you vote for, but get out and vote, and that's very important to do that. And it's all our responsibility to put the right people in office. I've been asked by the NCACC to be part of a group in November to put together the legislative goals. I don't know exactly what day it's going to be, and I told her, I said I'd go if I can. They better not put it on a Tuesday, though. So anyhow, that's what I got for today.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. May I just want to make one comment to follow up on Mr. Gurley. It was a decision for us to decide to pull back on the property taxes and go with the sales tax. And traditionally, the party that I belong to traditionally did not favor sales tax. But when I looked across the board and how we talk about how property taxes can affect folk, there is a large population of folk who have recently retired from all phases of government and jobs and so forth and so on. Baby boomers, people who were born sometime after 1946 or 45, 46. That was you and me and a whole lot of people that's got gray hair. Well, they spent a lifetime, 30, 40 years working. They purchased their homes, and now they're sort of settled in trying to see if they can manage their dollars. And they really couldn't stand. I just looked at different people that I knew. I thought to myself, well, they can't stand any more property tax. You can sort of control, well, I got enough shoes, I got enough shirts, I got enough neckties, and not go get one. But you got to pay those property tax, because our tax assessor's going to make sure that it gets paid. That's what his job is. So, first of all, Mr. Curley, you sort of took the initiative to bring that up, and I want to thank what Joe Daugherty has done, and I want to thank my party chairperson for responding to get that letter out that would put us all on the same page and say, this board is working together to try to do what's best for Wayne County. And so I encourage folk to go out and support that. I'm putting some flags out throughout Dudley and Mount Olive to show that, and I think we all should get out and support that, because we had promised that we would do some things for the school systems, and not to exclude the community college, but there's a lot of emphasis being put on what the public school needs and teachers need, supplements and so forth. And let me say this one little caveat. The counties around us are kicking our butt, kicking our backside with supplements, and they're just sucking our best teachers away. And folk, this is how it works. When the supplements gets our 4-5 year veterans, we got to come in with brand new teachers, and it takes 3 or 4 years for a teacher to get up to speed. I mean, to be able to do that job at that 5 year. So we're constantly training good teachers for the next county. We got to put a stop to that, and that's why I hope that this succeeds. And I want the public to understand that we're trying to work on something that will benefit our children in school and keep our professionals in place. And so that's just important. Thank you.
I couldn't have said it any better. I think we do need to go back in closed session for the same reasons we went before, because we didn't quite finish up. So is there a motion to go in closed session? Before we do that?
Let me just introduce a good friend of mine, former co-worker, Mr. Gregory Batts. He and I worked in probation and parole for a long time together. And did you have something you want to say?
No, I'm here. I'm taking the leadership wing, and let's see everybody in action.
Let me just tell a little quick joke about him. Back when we were working together, he came over to me one day and he said, I don't understand, sir. Nobody mess with you. So they treat you all good and everything. He said, they're always on my back. He said, what do you do to make them not mess with you? I said, well, I come in the morning. Nobody ever bother me. I grab the desk, turn it over, and I go on to my office. About a week later, he came over. He said, I did it. I said, why? He came even a little bit late for work, and somebody said something to him. He grabbed the desk and turned it over.
I was joking.
Oh, man.
I said, man, I was just kidding.
I tell you how long I've known. Greg and I went to high school together. I was viewing him as Snake. Isn't that right? You don't want me to tell anymore. All right, we got a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion about closed session?
Can I say one more thing?
Okay.
before we leave? I'm opening up a can of worms. The emails that we've gotten the last couple of days supporting our animal shelter, Mr. Frank Sauls, I just want to thank the people sending them emails. I mean, we've had so much negative. It's makes you feel good to get some good emails.
We don't get many.
We don't get many, and I just want to thank the people that has sent the emails in support of him. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to direct y'all's attention to the screens, and this goes to all 11 of my bosses. Happy Bosses Day.
How about that?
Well, I'll remind to tell my wife when I get home.
That's right. There you go.
But are we voting closed session? Everybody raise your right hand.
Thank you, Ray.